But before I knew it, I was back taking insane risks, trying to save fallen women.
If you are or ever were a fan of third-person shooter action games, even passingly, then the odds are pretty good that you're at least somewhat familiar with Max Payne, a series that hasn't even had a new game in about 10 years, yet is still plenty popular among those that have played it, and the many action games that have come since that are clearly inspired by it. For many, the original Max Payne is still the best, and I can't blame anyone for thinking that. The original Max Payne absolutely nailed its atmosphere, its dialogue, and revolutionized its genre with its stylish bullet time mechanic and flashy gunfights. The series was of course created by none other than Remedy Entertainment, the studio now more well known for the excellent Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and Control, which all seem to have a little bit of Max Payne's DNA still within them, but just implemented in different ways. Before we go ahead, a quick request. We upload new videos every single day, and your subscription matters a lot. So, please consider subscribing and enabling all notifications by clicking the bell icon. With that out of the way, let's begin. But it was Max Payne that put Remedy on the map, and would ultimately trigger a massive purchase of the IP by Rockstar Games after Remedy's excellent sequel to the original. While many might have been dismayed to see such a beloved IP fall into the hands of a much larger corporation, for once, that particular concern would turn out to be in vain. Not only would the Max Payne brand be treated with the respect it deserved by the folks over at Rockstar, but they would ultimately put out the finest game in the series, and one of the better third-person shooters of all time. For those unfamiliar with the setting of Max Payne, or maybe you just need a little refresher, the series now takes place about a decade after the events of the second game. Max has not only failed to rekindle a meaningful life for himself throughout this time, but he's actually fallen even deeper into his own rabbit hole of cynicism and regret. Still haunted by what he feels are his past mistakes and the ultimate blame that he puts on himself for the death of his family, Max is about as alcoholic and painkiller addicted as ever. We find him in a new chapter of his life, where he is a private bodyguard working security detail for a sleazy South American family of elites by day. The opening few levels make Max's mental and emotional state quite clear, and the stage is set for some of the best noir-style dialogue the series and the medium has ever had, with gems like, "I'd been stuck in the past for so long I'd forgotten what year it was." Of course, as with any good crime story, nothing is quite what it seems in Max Payne 3. After the people Max was supposed to be protecting were kidnapped right in front of his face, Max and his new compadre, Raul Passos, try to handle a ransom handoff, but it falls apart when a paramilitary group of highly armed outlaws take the money instead. Ultimately, all of the parties involved in the escalating hostage situation all pretty much decide they want Max out of the equation and attempt to assassinate him, but instead they end up killing Rodrigo, the only member of the Bronco family Max had any respect for. This was the tipping point for Max, and what really sets off the story as Max finally puts his aimless self-pity aside, shaves his head, grows out a beard, and makes it his absolute mission to save what remains of the Bronco family and avenge Rodrigo. Where the story goes from there is a fairly convoluted tale that almost reaches levels of pure criminal underworld intrigue and never slows down. Locations vary from dilapidated buildings to military-grade encampments to Brazilian slums. We even get a nice amount of gameplay from Max's days in New York via some flashback sequences that somehow don't feel forced or out of place at all. Throughout all of the locations Max graces with his violent presence in the game, it's always that same dependably visceral gunplay that makes you feel like you're controlling the star of a top-tier action movie. No fetch quests, no puzzles, no fluff. Max Payne 3 is all meat and no bread. Triggering the iconic bullet time here can be done on the fly or as part of a leap out of cover that gives you several crucial seconds to pop off a few headshots before anybody can really react. Despite the huge advantage that affords to the player, the game never really lets you get too comfortable with legions of enemies in every level that are sporting heavy weaponry and fairly aggressive intelligence. Max can hold a few weapons at a time, but must choose between dual-wielding handguns or a single two-handed weapon at once. This might feel like a sacrifice, but with how many enemies you'll be constantly mowing down, you tend to come across a nice variety of weapons on a pretty constant basis anyway. So you quickly learn to not worry about what you drop or pick up for very long. The gunplay is of course superb, as the folks at Rockstar have left all of the style Remedy invented for the series in place, but put on their own layer of in-your-face violence with up-close and personal angles of certain enemies getting killed by your bullets, entry and exit wounds fully visible. It's pretty shocking at first, but it quickly becomes entertaining and somehow never really loses its edge throughout the game. Rockstar could have done the bare minimum with what Remedy had created with the first two games, and still probably would have had a worthwhile experience with the third one. Thankfully though, they were having none of that. Every ounce of Max Payne 3 is packed with compelling characters, a non-stop story that steadily gets better as it plays out to its outrageously satisfying conclusion. There will always be great games that excel at one or two aspects of their experience and stand out for that. But Max Payne 3 is what happens when you are figuratively and literally firing on all cylinders, when everything about it is impeccable. It's one of those rare games that truly has it all. As much as I would love to see a fourth entry in the series, 3 is perhaps best left without a follow-up. Narratively, Max's story is brought to one of gaming's finest conclusions at the end of 3, and gameplay-wise, there's really nothing to add to the gameplay of Max Payne 3 without risking losing what makes it Max Payne. Max Payne 3 is about as perfect a balance of improvements to the original format and dedication to its core tenets that you can ever hope to find in gaming, and for that, I can't be too mad at Rockstar for leaving it alone. That said, whatever does or doesn't come of the franchise in the future, Max Payne 3 will always be one of the finest action games of all time, and the absolute epitome of third-person shooters.
This is a bad idea.
That's all for now. If you enjoy what you saw, please hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, now is a great time to subscribe. We upload brand new videos every single day. After subscribing, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time, right here on Gaming Bolt.